we are going to blow up this engine. All right, Kyle, this is a small car and you're a big man. You can do this. This could either be fantastic or it could be terrible. Oh, shit. Oh. Have you ever wondered what a supercharged midget on methanol looks like? The young version of me would be proud of what we're doing here today. He'd be confused, but he'd be proud. We've just made this thing run on methanol because methanol makes things faster. Now, there was only one logical thing to do, and that was to run this car, the world's smallest ute, around Lakeside Motorsport Park. Is it Lakeside Motorsport Park? No. Wait, like. There's only one logical thing to do, and that was to run the world's smallest ute around Lakeside Park, naturally aspirated. So we want to find the difference between what it is naturally aspirated and what it is supercharged. So today, we're going to run it naturally aspirated. Now, I'm expecting a slow time because this is slow, but if it feels fast because it's small and sketchy, but I guess there's only one real way to find out. Put a helmet on and race. All right, Kyle, don't let your little usage of race car driving let you down today. This is a small car and you're a big man. You can do this. Just like a burnout, only totally different. All right, Kyle. 3, 2. The worst part about being in Australia is that I don't get to drive LUXIFER. But did you guys know there's an iPhone game or an Android game that you can play on your phone and you get to drive LUXIFER? Well, let me introduce you to Burnout Masters. Now, Burnout Masters on iPhone is basically what it sounds like. You can be your own Burnout Master and play all the coolest cars on the game. Now, my personal favorite is LUXIFER because, you know, it's mine. You can also pick some of the coolest tracks in the world, like Cletus's Freedom Factory. You can get Cletus's car, or you can even play as my mate Lynchy. Download Burnout Masters today and join the fun. Now, back to the racing. Alright, easy into the corner, big fella. Easy in. Easy, do I drop again? Right, apex, using the apex. Good line, good line. Flip that, beautiful. Keep it going. Come on, you thing. Come on, you big. Nice transfer away. This does not feel safe. Braking. Down gears. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Nice line. Alright. On the brakes. Scrub off some speed. Pick that line. That line. Nice. Top gear. I like this turn. Top gear. Feels like it's going to flip. Alright. Throttle it out. Beautiful lap. So there we have it. The Daihatsu Midget 2, it does a lap of a time of 1 minute and 48 seconds. Now, it felt extremely sketchy, but I knew I had to hold the pedal to the floor because I really wanted to set a fast time. So, we've been to the racetrack and we've set a time in the big girl. One thing we didn't account for is that we couldn't get it running properly with the blower. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this happened. One, the first reason is the blower's from TEMU and it actually has 3D printed blades, which is bad, which is extremely bad. But I wasn't concerned because the boost would run into the carby. The shrapnel, if the blades did fly apart, would just go into the carby and it's no big deal. Clean out the carby, blah, 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 it's all good. However, this is not a blow through carby and I was hoping that it wouldn't be a massive deal if we actually put boost into it. Turns out it is a massive deal. It doesn't want to run in the higher gears. It'll run fine in first and second gear. As soon as we get to the higher gears, there's a bit bit more load on the engine. Obviously creates maybe a bit more boot, I don't know. But either way, it doesn't want to run. So we've got one way to fix this. We take the carby where it is and put it on top of the blower, and then the boost goes straight out of the blower into the intake manifold with the fuel already atomized into the boost pressure. Now, this is the right way to do it. The only problem is if the blower now flies apart, which it probably will, that foreign material will go straight into the motor and probably ruin the motor. So that's a problem. We can maybe try and put some sort of a mesh gauze over it, maybe, possibly, but it's still gonna, stuff's gonna get past it, it's gonna restrict the airflow. It's not gonna be ideal, but we realistically don't have any other options apart from really changing this thing up and putting a different boost adder into it, which, you know, the whole idea is, can we make this $100 blower work? And yeah, I believe we can. And I believe we can make it work really well. The question is, how long will it last for? I don't know. I needed to do a dyno run. I needed to do a lap of the track. And I think we should probably do burnouts in it just because we like doing burnouts. So those three things need to happen. Will those three things happen before this thing blows up? Probably. Maybe not. I don't know. But there's only one way to find out. And we're going to do it so you don't have to, because that's what we do here. Do things so you don't have to. So just continue watching. We are in the belly of the beast. We're in the engine bay of the Midget. We are in the engine compartment of a small person. Well, no, it's a Midget, it's a Daihatsu Midget. But anyway, we're here, and this is the carby. Now, as you can see, there is a hell of a lot of hoses going on here. I actually don't know what they are. This looks like a fuel hose. They're fuel lines. That is like some sort of, I don't know what any of this stuff is. I don't know carbies. I've never owned a car with a carby on it. For a reason, because I don't like carby. Throttle cable. So what we want to do is we want to take this carby here from this intake, that's here, and we want to put it over on this. This is going to cause a couple of problems. It's going to cause the throttle cable is going to have to move. All these lines, whatever these lines do, we're going to have to either extend them or move them so they all work over this side. Is there enough room under here? I don't know. How are we going to make this fit that thing? I don't know. There's a whole lot of stuff that I really don't have the answer for at the moment, but there is only one way to try and fix this stuff, and that's to start pulling things apart and hopefully remember how they go back together. Now, normally we'd just say, hey, Dennis, take this carby off and put it over here. Dennis isn't here. So today we've got me. And my knowledge of carburetors is very limited, as I said before, but I'm just realistically going to start pulling things apart. And when it doesn't go back together, you won't see this video. But if you do see this part, know that we got something happen. And if you don't see it, well, there's no problems because you didn't see it. But I hope you do see it. So if you're watching this, do me a favor and like the video and subscribe, because this took a lot for me. This is a lot. This is way out of my wheelhouse. But yeah, I guess I'll get some tools and we'll start getting busy. So first things first, I got some tape. Tape's good for a number of things. Tape's good for taping things up. Tape is good for taping people's mouths when you don't want them to speak anymore. And it's also good for putting around things when you're taking it off and marking it. So these fuel lines look very similar. There's one, it's sort of a bigger one there. So maybe we could make some sort of a video. And then when I don't know what goes where, I can go back to this video and I can see what was what. At the moment, this works. Once I move it, it might not work. And there'll be a reason for that. Normally I put something on the wrong end or something's different or whatever. That's what I'd use tape. Got this bit of tape here. And I'm gonna write front. F for front. Front fuel. FF. Doesn't stand for the Freedom Factory, it stands for front fuel. Now simply we just do this. Get that on the front fuel because we know there's only two, but I can see right now. Stick that together, and then when I pull this fuel line off, oh, I know that fuel line goes on the front, and the front being the front of the car, and not the front of the car, but it's car. That's my plan. Is this how you guys do this kind of thing? Surely there's times on people's cars where they're working on it and they go, yeah, I don't really know. I'm not going to remember where everything goes. Do you write little notes for yourself? Do you take photos with your phone? I'd really like to know a better system, but at the moment, this is what we're doing. So hopefully it all works out. Let me know what you do. Might be a better way to do this. Right. As far as I can see, the carby bolts up right here. So we've got to get rid of all these lines is a start. Now these lines are going to go back to where what is that? Some sort of air filter line. I don't know what half of these lines do. Do you even need them? Maybe if we run it and pull some lines off, we'll know if we actually even need them. All right, so I don't know what that is, but that can probably stay on there. That's a fuel line, that's a fuel line. I don't know what that is. There's nothing actually really to pull off. We're not going to do that. It's just too hard to pull this stuff off. Imagine if I said, like, we're going to do this and I won't show you any of it happening and then it just runs. Normally I'd do that, but because we don't have any of this, we don't have anyone to help us at the moment, it's like we've got to do everything ourselves. Now, okay, that's a bad idea. We're not going to do that. Oh. I'm just going to start undoing bolts until it comes off because I'm really good at taking things apart, not so good at putting them back together. So let's start with the first one and we'll go from there. We've got our first line off. I don't know what it does. We're about to find out if we need it or not. Doesn't feel like it does anything. I don't know. So we probably don't need those if it doesn't do anything. Been on there for like 28 years. That's why it's so hard to get off. All right, we got these two things off. I don't even know what they do. Probably don't need them. So pretty much we just got to move all these lines and then move it and then hopefully connect all the lines back up. You know, everything should be fine. But while we got this carby out, I really want to drill the jets out so we got more fuel, because more fuel, more air equals more power. But I just don't know what to drill them out to. I don't even know whether, like what. I guess we're going to find out together. If it runs, it'd be a miracle. But that's the thing with YouTube. Everything's just a miracle. Like, it just happens. It's like a secret thing. All these YouTubers, they just do things and it just works. Hope that's the case for me. So that's got to come off, that's got to come off, and this carby should realistically just come out. It's also cool. We'll just let it run out on the floor. All right, let's have a look at this thing. So there we have it. Whoa, whoa, yeah. We only need to figure out how to get this on top of the supercharger, which is cutting out a plate, making that fit to a 90-degree bend, which is making it fit on the other side. And that's pretty much our only option, to be fair. Come back in here, John. So realistically, we need to make this, let's go in here, fit on that. And once we can get that to fit on there, all we got to do is connect up the boost line straight onto that, which isn't the end of the world. We just do another plate like we had, and then weld a bit of pipe around it for the hose to flip. And that's pretty much what we got to do. Take this off. That's our pod filter we made. That's all nice and ready to rock and roll. All right, so we got this off. Back to the workbench. I'll explain to you what we got to do. So this is the top of the blower, sits on the blower like that. This is our carburetor. Now we've got to make this go into here. The only real logical way I can figure out is if I get a bit of paper, trace around it, get a bit of metal, get a 90-degree bend. So we cut the plate out so that fits, weld a bit of tube on it, that matches that. So when we open up the throttle, it's going to squirt fuel down this tube into the blower atomizes the fuel, churns it up, and with the boost, takes it all the way through the pipe and puts it into the intake of the engine. Maybe Dennis knows we're doing something dodgy. Now I'm going to take advantage of my hands that are dirty, fondle these hands around the outside of this plate. What that's going to give us is going to give us a trace mark. So see, you do a bit of fondling there, nice little bit of fondling, and we've got the outline of the plate we need to cut. I'm actually surprised it turned out so well, but sometimes I do surprise myself, so I'm not totally useless. Straight through that, we don't need it. There we go. So pretty much now, once I cut out the two bolt holes, we'll transfer that onto a bit of plate steel, cut the plate steel out. We got wherever I put my plasma cutter, it's right there, ready to go. I didn't put it away. And try and ignore all the mess in the workshop, because I really need a day where I just clean everything, but we haven't got time. We are so tight on time, it's not funny. Now, best thing to remember is when you are cutting things, double eye protection. Now I can probably see what I'm doing. Now, it might not look round because it isn't. And that's not going to matter, because it's like, you know when a golf ball's got little imperfections, little divots all over it and it flies further? Well, if you have this inside your carby, it makes more power. That's what I'm going to say anyway. There's one thing I take pride in around here, and it's really doing good top quality work. And you know, I take pride in this like you would take pride in your own car. And you can see with the, you know, the accuracy of the cuts that I think we're onto a winner here. I believe this is going to work. All right, now that you turn that off, this is terrible. This is like a 4-year-old could cut out better than that. All right, so this is going to be extremely hot. Now, to be honest with you, a lot of this doesn't matter. We're just going to clean all this up and it'll look terrible. Like, it looks terrible now, but it'll look less terrible when I clean it up. It'll work. It'll pretty much work. And the reason why I spent 30 seconds on it and not 3 minutes is because it's sacrificial. And well, it's pretty much as good as my skills get on one of those things. But we'll clean it up and you'll see. You will see. And there we have it. We are bolted on. Now the most important thing is make sure the butterfly is still open. Squirt of fuel out of there. Right, so we screw that in nice and tight. That's in the middle. That's exactly where that plate's going to be. And as you see, when we open up the... See how it's bottoming out on that? I want to clean that up, but I just haven't got access to the right tool at the moment. But I will clean the bottom of that out. So when we open this, the fuel actually sprays into where we want it to. But to be fair, under that much suction, it's probably not going to matter. We'll sort that out later. Now, what we need to do is this is going to be on top of the supercharger. Pretend this is the supercharger, this massive box. And that is the intake. We're going to call this an intake. We now need to get from this plate into this intake. I know it's a small hole into a big intake, and we can't really go much bigger because it's going to start interfering with our nuts and stuff. But we can either go over the top of that, or we can go inside of that. I'm thinking a nice fit inside of that's going to be the go, and then we can probably put a silicone joiner on top of it because it's suction, slip it in there like a sleeve, and then clamp both top and bottom. We went down to my favorite exhaust shop, Les at Fat Pipes at Kalenga there now. I rummaged through his scrap pile and I found this. It's not quite exactly the size I wanted, but it's going to be good enough. Imagine we've got the supercharger. Let's just make a little diagram so everyone at home is following what's going on in my head. Okay, so this is the supercharger that's in the engine bay right now. We needed this carburetor in all its glory. We needed this carby to be offset to the supercharger because we want to take air from here through the carby into the blower. Now that blower is going to be sucking a lot of air. So what I got is this pipe, and we made up our little plate earlier. That really good job. Zoom in on that. That's quality. Quality. So we're going to weld this pipe to here. We're obviously going to cut this down a bit because it's too long, but we need a bit of an offcut for something else later in the day. We're going to weld that to there, and we're going to join this to here. And that is going to be our carby mount. Now, we won't mount it any other way. We'll just let it flap in the breeze because that's the way you do things around here. You just she'll be right sort of attitude. So once we do that, we will have fuel from the carby into the blower. Here's the thing about our TEMU blower. Our TEMU blower is very cheap. Very, very cheap. Made very cheaply, looks cheap, performs cheaply, does everything cheaply. We need to cool down these rotors because these rotors are plastic. So what happens with plastic when it gets hot? It gets brittle, it gets soft, flies apart. There's one way to cool down supercharger rotors, and that's to put fuel through them. So the fuel spinning around, methanol is a great one because it has a cooling property. Fuel will cool down these rotors slightly, a little bit. Not as much as methanol, but obviously we're not going to run this thing on methanol. Well, maybe we can run this thing on methanol. If I drill out these jets enough. No, actually, no, stop. We're not going to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to run it on petrol. Now the petrol, the fuel that gets mixed with the boost is going to go through the supercharger, which ideally should cool down the rotors enough to stop them from flying apart, we hope. And then the fuel goes through the blower, does this. It's going to pump the boost that is now atomized with the fuel that's gone through the blower into the engine. And that just has to go straight into that hole on the engine. And then the pistons will be going up and down and the spark plugs will be sparking and the air will be in there and it'll make massive amounts of horsepower. We hope. So that's what we're doing. Try and figure out how I'm going to make this go into here. Because realistically, I could maybe heat that up and push it in there, but then maybe I'll silicone that on there because that would be sucking. Now, John was saying that am I just going to cut this with a grinder? But no, I am not dodgy. A little bit dodgy. But I do have this bandsaw, which I bought for Andy because he was whinging about something else and he needed the right tools when he was building the roll cage, and I bought this. So now we may as well use it. And as easy as that, got ourselves a really nice straight cut. Now I'm not sure if I want to cut the other side as well. I don't know if we need the carby to come out a little bit, but what we're going to do is simulate where everything should be sitting and see if we need to cut a bit off this side. That offcut there is going to be used to weld onto the bracket we have not yet made. So the boost pipe can just go straight on there. And I did check this thickness with the boost pipe and it's definitely not going to go on there. So now we've got to come up with some other little way of making it go on there, but that's a later on problem. We've got bigger things to fry at the moment. All right, so we'll put a bit of lube around that. She's on there. All right, that's getting pretty tight there now. We don't want to tighten it too much. All right, done. Now, this is Ian. Ian is actually a qualified boiler maker and he's just standing here shaking his head. So I wanted to get Ian involved in my techniques. Now you hold that, Ian. Now this is just hold it like that. Don't move for the next half an hour. So what I like to call this the dirty hand technique. Now what I do is I just get this. So you find your dirtiest finger. And as long as that paper doesn't move, you've got a perfect outline. And there we have it. That is a perfect outline of what we're trying to do. Now,
John, mate, can you just get me a pencil, please, so I can sit this on here and just mark that out? Boom, boom, boom.
This is good because I didn't have a texter, so this is why I used it. But then we found a texter and I could have just done that. But anyway, this is what we've done. I'm very proud of the dirty head technique. It works well.
Okay.
We're going to let Ian cut a bracket down. Right, well, it's a new day, and today we've got a pretty simple task, and that is to mount our carburetor onto the blower, hook everything up, and make some boost, and go to the dyno and the track. I don't know if you can hear that drop saw in the back, but it's quite loud. We've got our two brackets. Now, I can't remember which one I made and which one Ian made.
Ian made the left one.
This one?
Yeah, he made that one.
This one?
Yeah.
Ian made this one because it doesn't really look that great. But either way, they're both going to work. The holes line up, we're good to go. The hole in the middle sort of lines up. And you know, it's good enough. Good enough for what we're doing. So, Obviously the other day I made this little pipe up. This is going to sit on top of the supercharger. We are going to weld a bracket. I just need to get the angle. See, I don't want this carby sitting on a bit of an angle because we want it nice up and down and straight and looking good. So probably we might hide that bracket. We might use this bracket that I made to, so I'm going to bolt this in onto the supercharger, get the right angle. We'll cut that on an angle, weld that to there. As you can see, mate, look at my welds. That ain't going anywhere. I welded over the top because it wasn't hot enough. And the first weld, it was too hot and it blew a hole in something. So, you know, I just made sure, I know it doesn't look like it's the best weld ever, but this would pretty much hold the force of like 8,000 PSI. And we're not gonna make that. So don't worry about it. I know someone's in the comments and they go, nice welding, mate. I remember my first day. Well, you know, I'm not a welder or a fabricator. I drive cars and I do that very average. So all the rest of the stuff is even more average. Anyway, well, depends who you are. We've got this. We're gonna weld this on once we get the angle, bolt everything together, and hopefully we don't blow up the engine, hopefully. We're at a stage now with the video. The first video from this is going really, really well. Guys, thank you very much for watching all 40 minutes of it. We're at a stage now where if this thing blows up, you're still going to see it because we're just in too deep. We're like fully committed to this series now. But I don't want that. I really want to prove to everyone that these superchargers do work. I know they're junk. I know they're Chinese 3D printed blades and all the rest of the stuff. I know that. But the whole idea behind this series is, can we make this work? Can we get it to work? Because no one else really got it to work, but we can. You and me, and we're like a team now. We're just going to make this work. We're going to will it into working. Let's get back into it, and I'll explain to you a bit later why I think we got a bit of a upper hand on the competition, you could call it. So I bolted this little manifold sort of thing, we're going to call it, and we can see that the end of this pipe is on a bit of an angle. Now, let me grab the plate that I made. So this is obviously designed to bolt on the carby. Now we got all the room in the world here to bolt the carby on, which I haven't checked if it's going to be low enough. Hopefully it is low enough. I should probably check. But anyway, well, I'm going to weld this onto this, and the carby literally bolts directly to this plate. So that way it'll feed fuel into the supercharger, through the supercharger, into the motor. But I want to get this straight. So it's on a bit of an angle now. We want to straighten it about 5 degrees. So I'm just going to rip this out and cut off the top, just cut a bit of a through there, and then this will be able to be straight, and that's what we want. What I'm going to do is when I pull this out, tack weld this on. Notice I'm planning ahead for the first time in my life. Tack weld that plate on, bolt the carby on, set it, make sure we're going to clear everything, and if everything clears and everything's sweet, we'll weld her in and we'll start hooking these boost lines up. But I want to check that first, because otherwise it just creates a whole drama and time. And as I mentioned in the last video, we don't have any time. We head back to America and very soon. I really need to get this done, and we don't have time to redo things. So tack that on there, looks about right. I don't think, well, if we get that higher, that means it gets the carby lower. So we can probably put it up the top end of it. We got a bunch of room for that hole, so we can have a bit of movement. It's not a big deal. Nothing will foul, but the lower we get that bracket on this pipe, the lower the whole carby's gonna sit. So let's go with that plan, John. Good idea. Good idea. Tell you what, John, if you keep coming up with all these good ideas, you're pretty much going to be Andy. So, you know, keep it up, and you're due for a small increase in your lunch budget. Ooh, I get lunch. No, you don't. But you know, if there was a budget, you would have an increase. Let's give ourselves a little bit of room for weld. That weld there was so strong it fell off. Can you actually not put that in the video? I know you're going to put it in the video, mate. It's fine. I think that's about right. There we go, that's what I was looking for. Now, that is nice and low on the bracket, or nice and high on the bracket, whichever way you want to look at it. We'll give one more weld in here, give it some nice penetration for our midget car. Now, it's probably a little bit hot, but we'll bolt that back in. Okay, if you're wondering, it's hot. Yeah. Now, it's actually quite refreshing. I don't know if I've mentioned this earlier in the video, but it's quite refreshing to be able to do this stuff like really dodgily. And I'm not saying like dodgily like, you know, zip ties and stickers or zip ties and duct tape. We are to do things where you're not really concerned about the presentation of it. Now, every other car I've ever built has to look nice, it has to perform well, it has to do everything it has to do. This thing, you know, to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. That's a bonus, because most of the time you're like, oh, I'd love to do something this way, it's going to be easy, it's going to save, you know, hours of labor, etc., etc. But you're like, you know what, it doesn't look right, and it's not the right way to do it, because, you know, looks are important on a lot of the cars I own. To go, you know what, I don't care if it looks like a 2-year-old cut that bracket out, because as long as it works, it works. Now, when this is final assembly, we will just fast forward me doing this bolt up, because no one wants to watch that. That's pretty much where our carby's going to sit in its final position. The only other thing I was worried about, which looks like now it's going to be fucking I shouldn't swear, going to be perfect. This is not going to be that hard. But anyway, let's close this lid and have a look, shall we? We clear that by about 2 mil. Anyway, so I'm happy with that. It, as I said, it just about touches. So let me get this thing out, and then we'll weld this up. Final destination. Then we can start working on the other side, and then I reckon we can just start it. What do you think about drilling out some jets? give it a bit, give a bit more fuel.
Yep.
No, like jets in a car. These jets.
Oh, those jets.
I think we might drill these jets out, which I was going to see just how it runs, but if this much power, I really think it's going to need more fuel. We might pull this apart and see if we can really make a mess of it and not know how to put it back together. And if we can get to some jets, we can drill some jets out. There is a tiny little baby pilot jet in there, and yeah, we can just see what we can do there. I've had a thought. Don't hold it against me. But I was just looking at this carby and seeing, if we needed to get more fuel, how I'd do that. Now, I found the main jet after about half an hour of unscrewing things and trying not to mix up how it went together. I found this jet. Another thing you'll notice is that carby's back together. And what that basically translates to is I've taken the jet out of the carby because I need all of the fuel. What I mean by all of the fuel is now, not only are we supercharging this big beast of a car, we're also going to run it on methanol, race fuel. Hail Mary, we're going to put this thing to the floor and we are going to make 40 horsepower. Hopefully. If we can make 40 horsepower out of this thing, we have like nearly doubled it. 5 horsepower off doubling it. Well, 10 if you double it. But anyway, we want to make way more power. We want to set a lap that we go, you know what? I can noticeably feel the difference of this car. And I guess there's only one way to do it, and that's boost, and that's methanol. The good thing about running methanol is a lot of people that have done this supercharger in the past have failed. I don't want to fail. And the biggest failure of this supercharger is obviously the blades on the inside of the supercharger are plastic. It gets hot because it's turning and whipping around, making noise, and it sounds terrible, and I get it. But the thing is, heat kills everything. If that supercharger is spinning at 150 degrees, it's creating friction, plastic gets soft, it flies apart. Methanol does the opposite. It cools everything. So not only now are we going to be running methanol for power, methanol is going to be going through that supercharger, making it extremely cold, which is then going into the engine as cold ambient or cold air, cold boosted air to make more power. Now, this is a great idea. However, is taking this jet out going to be enough? Is the fuel system going to keep up with it? I don't know. I actually have no idea. But there is only one way to find this out, and that's what we're going to do. And the reason we're doing it is so you don't have to. So anyway, let me get this thing bolted up, fix a few more things, and we're going to give this big girl, change the fuel. I put like 40 litres of premium in it, so I'm going to have to siphon that out. We're going to get some methanol. I'm pretty sure I've got some methanol here. The thing is, I got rid of 20 litres the other day because I needed the, this is methanol. Cold, really cold. So we've got 20 litres of methanol and we're going to make this thing sing. All right, so now, because I've shifted this bracket, I've got to be very careful not to weld through the bolt holes because that would be bad. But, worst case scenario, we grind it out, but I really don't want to. So try my best not to do that. Luckily, we got this nice welding bench here. Works a treat. That looks pretty bad. I was going to do a really good job welding it, and I thought, you know what? I don't want my welding to outshine the bracket. So what I did is I just did a shit weld. Now that means that now the brackets, the welding, all the fabrication work I've done looks terrible, but at least it matches. Nothing worse than nice welds on bad brackets. That's another tip for you. That is so close to that hole. Come have a look at this, John. So see how close to that hole? I couldn't really lay a bead through there because it was just going to go into the hole. So, but anyway, that's probably good enough. If this was a professional thing for a real car, I would bung it off and I would pressure test it. But because this is obviously the side where we're drawing fuel from the carby, it's suction. So suction isn't as bad if it was boost and it was blowing fuel out somewhere, which that's another problem. I don't think we can now bleed boost off because now it's atomizer fuel. So if we're spraying atomized boost air out of the pipe into the engine bay while it's running, it's probably a real bad idea. I've come to the conclusion, John, that without putting some sort of redneck blow-off valve on this thing to bleed some pressure off, which it's still going to bleed off fuely air, we're just going to have to run this thing whatever it makes. All the power. We're going to have to run all the boost into this big girl. I like it. I like it a lot. Anyway. Right, still hot. So we're making up some of our own gaskets. Ultra copper gasket maker exhaust. Well, you can pretty much use exhaust, intake, whatever you want. This stuff's gold. I use it literally on everything. We've made up ourselves a nice, neat little, whatever you'd call that. Now, the next thing is, what I need to do is I need to find that bolt, wherever I put that other bolt to hold this on. So I'm gonna put some new bolts in this because the other ones are a bit longer. And also a problem we can see here now, because of the tight tolerances here with our boost tube, like that one there is going to be okay, but this side here obviously doesn't sit flat. Going to get some sort of a little belt cylinder in there, or maybe that wheel over there, and try and grind a bit away without releasing, obviously opening up the pipe so the air can escape. So hopefully I'll just nip that a bit where that bolt will sit flat, and then I will be happy to bolt this up onto our massive carburetor we got here that's ready to run methanol, by the way. So you can see there that it's, flatten that off a bit. It doesn't look like it's, gone through into where it doesn't need to at all. Now we drop this bolt down and there we have it, nice and flat. Spins good enough. So that's cool. Maybe we put a bit of goop on this side. All right, that looks good to me because that side's got someone on it as well. I'm hoping none of this like sneaks into the carburetor and blocks the jet because you know, that's probably not cool. But we can't be worrying about those sort of things. Now, probably should be using a nylock and a spring washer would be fantastic if I can find one. So we'll chuck a spring washer on here because I don't have a nylock. Can't be bothered going down the road to get one nut. So spring washer it is. Right, I really think that's sealed enough. Now, going to bolt this down on top of the supercharger. Nicely drop it on here. Doesn't feel very nice. Where's the hole?
That's what she said.
It feels like a hole. It's actually a bit of a challenge working on small things. Like you think, oh, it's small, it's easy. It's not. There's no room to move. You know, it's actually quite a challenge. You know, if you guys enjoy this, can you really let me know in the comments what you think of these kind of builds? I've had so much fun doing this thing and driving this thing. I really would like to do more of it, but go maybe a step crazier next time. Because, you know, standard stuff, it's not really my wheelhouse. Bolting superchargers on stuff that definitely shouldn't have a supercharger and putting methanol in it, that's my wheelhouse. So let's hope you guys enjoy it. Okay, so that's all on there now. I need to probably nip them up. I was right. Good, we just need to get the fuel around to here. So I just need a longer one of those. I need some pipe. So basically, we're gonna hook up the pump out the methanol first once we get a longer hose. Now we went down the road and we found a little bit of chrome moly, which is roughly the same size as that boost tubing we got. So we're taking this really nice bracket that I've made and we're gonna weld this on here, and that way you can slide the boost tube over, clamp it on for maximum boost. Hopefully it stays on there, and if it doesn't, you know, you can rib the sort of the end of it so the clamp hits against it, but I don't think 20 pounds is gonna blow it off. Well, I hope it doesn't blow it off because that would suck. But the big thing with this, I'm not trying to move the angle of where the tube is in the middle is more than sufficient. So I'm gonna try and place it where, you know, where it's not going to foul the the bolt holes. Obviously I explained before about boost. The airflow doesn't need to be quite perfect because of the way, you know, the whole thing works. But I think we'll weld this on, bolt it on, and we're pretty much down to the little jobs like changing fuel over, stuff like that. That looks pretty good to me, John.
Pretty good.
Helps if we weld with gas. You know, when you're welding, if you have the gas on, it really, really helps. So just remember, little tip for next time. Didn't fall off, so we're good. You know, that's sort of my level of welding, you know, which is not, as once again, not high. I'm not a welder or a fabricator or anything like that. I go for what works, and if it works, I'm happy. He's a hot boy. Hot boy. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our intake manifold adapter. Look at it. Look at that. Even left a little bit of bird. You know, if you're really fancy, you could weld around in the side and just double check, but I'm not all about that kind of smoke. All right, so get the correct length bolts, which doesn't look like this one. She's a bit short, mate, a little bit short. Well, luckily that's not the first time I've heard that in my life. That's our methanol line, if anyone was wondering. Methanol will be flowing through the veins of that hose, thanks to our friends at MSA. You know, the funny thing is when I go into MSA, they go, what do you want? It's like, hey mate, how's your day? They're like, oh, what do you want? Something that's too hard. To be fair, I never just go in there for shit that just normal people want. It's always like, yeah, I'm doing what I'm doing is I got this real sketchy thing and I want to do this, I want to do this, and they just shake their head at most of the time.
Putting methanol in a midget.
Well, first of all, told me I can't use that word. They said, well, that's the name of the car. Like, you know, what do you want me to do? Like, this is my Daihatsu short person. But anyway, we're getting really off topic and I don't even want to keep speaking about it. Now, guys, whether you're struggling with length or struggling too long or too short, there's always a struggle at some point. Today, we're struggling with too much length. And, you know, it's a pretty weird thing for me. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to say you're not alone. I also have struggles. Sometimes I struggle to get a good cameraman that stops telling me things. Sometimes I struggle with midget builds. But back on topic. So the good thing is this is a flat surface. What we're going to do is we're going to fit this up to the hose like it is. I'm going to get a bit of length through here. That carby is in the way of the boost hose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make another bit of pipe on an angle. We haven't done this in a really long time. How much easier is that? Let's get welding. Look at that, stacking dimes. Except this is... But anyway, Andy would be happy. If we like made this look like aluminium, I sent it to Andy, he'd be like, good job, Kyle, you've done well. But he would probably still know that's not my welding. There you go. I don't know. I didn't really need to weld around it again, but I did, just because I like to. And if you spent 10, 15 minutes on a grinder, that would be the nicest bend you've ever seen. It's not about the looks, it's about the performance. All right, guys, this is at a point of the video where we are cooking with gas. Look at that for a manifold. I've never seen such a good looking manifold in my life. Does it taste good, that stuff? If you're gonna buy an energy drink, this is the one you want. Zero sugar Monster Energy Original. It's fantastic. Get yourself one. All right, now, the 13-year-old me be really proud. He goes, you know what, aspiring football player, but instead of being a football player, we grew up. I'm now 33 years old, and I'm working on a Daihatsu Midget. We just put a supercharger on it. So, take that, young Kyle. You are now the coolest possible midget mechanic in the world, because we're also putting it on methanol. I think he would be proud. A young version of me would be proud of what we're doing here today. He'd be confused, but he'd be proud. Why don't we see if this thing runs? No, we won't see if it runs because it's too much fuel. So what we'll do, we'll pump some gas out, John. John, we'll get rid of the gas. Get rid of the gas, John. And then once we get rid of the gas, put some methanol in there. And then we can start it on methanol. And if it runs, I'm so surprised. Unfortunately, this is the easiest way to empty the fuel out of here. Got a bit of a siphoning system going on here. Just trying to get the last little bits of fuel out of here. We don't really want to mix it with methanol. Give this big girl the first taste of its methanol. So you got to hold that firm in there, like this. It's nice and firm. Now you're watching this, you're probably thinking, what are you doing? Well, we're putting methanol in it because methanol makes things faster. And we are on a quest to find speed and power and milk that just tastes like real milk. But for now, we're just going to do with this. Now this is going to do two things. This is going to blow this up or not. You know, there's a 50-50 chance of either way. But I am pretty confident that we're going to have some issues. Now I'm not sure whether I try and run it on straight meth, naturally aspirated first. I think that's probably a goer. Obviously it'll have to draw through, might not draw through the carby, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. What is that? Man, that's not good. Well, you know what that means? And what that means is it's not sucking air through the supercharger because it's makes sense, it's not spinning. Well, one thing to do, John, we've got to connect up the supercharger belt. Off with the little baby belt and on with the big supercharger belt. This is legitimately, what you're seeing is the first time that we're going to start this thing on methanol with the boost hooked up to the right side of the carby. So this could either be fantastic or it could be terrible. Either way, you're going to see it because we're that far into this project. If it blows up right now and a rod shoots through the side and goes through the shed, it is what it is. But if it doesn't, oh, this big girl's, I'm excited. All right. You smell that? I think that's methanol. Right, well, at least we know the coolant's coming out of there for a reason. Why that coolant is in there has got me screwed. That's where the boost goes in. What we might do is just take this off because it comes into here. There's no reason for that to even be in there. I'm gonna go outside for a bit. We've just made this thing run on methanol and like it sounds good. It sounds tough, like a methanol car does sound on idle. And my eyes are burning, there's an exhaust leak and there's a lot of coolant leaks, but we're not worried about coolant where we're going. It just looks like it's ready to party. Now, if this thing runs clean through the rev range and there's so much boost, because even that radiator hose, that silicone one we put on there, when I give it a bit of a rev, it balloons out. So this thing is gonna be getting jammed 20 pounds of boost, methanol, into a, whatever this engine is, like 400cc or something, 500cc, whatever it is, small engine, methanol, lots of boost. What could possibly go wrong? Have you ever wondered what a supercharged midget on methanol looks like? Look at that, Carwood ads. Right, well, it's not running the best, but it seems to be holding its own under load. Now, the only logical thing to do is just driving around the car park. This could be its last drive, or it could be its first of many glorious drives. And, you know, I would really like to see this one go around the track. Something inside of me tells me it's, she's not quite happy. We'll get it to the dyno if it survives this drive, and I'm ready to see some power. Definitely found fast, but it made a really weird noise at the end there. So this thing was like noticeably faster, but sort of made like a knocking noise. Now I don't know if that was just start hitting the seat when it conked out or... Oh shit, that'll do it. Well, now we cut a boost cage in half, but you know, is what it is. She's She's a little bit hot, I think, or something's quite going on. But what we'll do is we'll give her a little rest, because I think that makes a hell of a lot more horsepower, and I really want to get it on the dyno, worst case, to do at least a run, and that way we know it worked. I probably should engage someone that tunes carbies, because I have zero idea about carbies, but if we can somehow get a carby tuner and get this thing on a dyno and prove that this really does work. That supercharger line is so cold, it's like freezer temperature, even with the heat soak, so. Well, that would have to be the coolest little experience I've had in this car. Now, this has got two things are still gonna happen. It's either gonna blow up or it's gonna impress everyone. Now, I really hope it impresses myself and everyone else, because it felt so fast right then. And you know, I was gonna take it to the track, but obviously there's still a bit of work to do. But when we do take it to the track, it's gonna be fun. And I need to beat that time of 1 minute and 48 seconds. And I really think with what we've done here, I really believe that we can really take some time off that. We can put a bunch of horsepower on it. I believe in the next video, we are going to blow up this engine. And if it doesn't blow up, we'll do stuff until it blows up, because this will be the end of her journey. Thank you for watching. Cheese. Peace. Cheese. Peace. Peace. This is my Daihatsu short person.